Are we like God? Well, in some ways we are, in that we are created in His image. We have the ability to think. We have the ability to make decisions. We have free will. But in most respects, we're not like God. God says that His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and His ways are higher than our ways. We can't get Him. We can't even understand Him. And yet, there are people that say we can be like God. Now, the obvious example of this is the Mormons, the LDS people. They claim that we can actually, eventually, become the God of our own planet through something called eternal progression. And this is something that Joseph Smith taught in the King Follett Discourse, or the King Follett Sermon, whatever you want to call it. And it was confirmed and reiterated by the fifth president of their church, a guy by the name of Lorenzo Snow, who famously said that as man is, God once was, and as God is, man can become. So basically he's saying that our God used to be a man, like we are, and that we can become gods like He is. But they're not the only ones that are saying that we're like God. Televangelist Kenneth Copeland has lately been teaching that we are little gods. And there's a scripture that he uses for that, but he's taken that scripture way out of context and grossly misinterpreted it. So if you know anything about the Bible and about Hebrew and about the Old Testament, at the burning bush when Moses asks God, who do I tell Pharaoh, or who do I tell the people that sent me? And God says to him, I am who I am. And I am was God's name. In English, we pronounce it Yahweh. Some people in the past have pronounced it Jehovah. But basically, God's name is I am. I am who I am. Kenneth Copeland has said, when God says I am, I can look Him back in the face and say, I am too. And I think both of those theologies are blasphemous. We are not God. I cannot say to God, I am God too. I am. I'm not a little God. And I'm not going to become a God. Isaiah is pretty clear that God was God from eternity past and is God to eternity in the future, and that He doesn't even know of any other gods. He's never heard of any other gods. There were no gods before Him. There will be no gods formed after Him. There are no other gods, period. Doesn't happen, can't exist. Other than, yes, there are false gods. Scriptures clearly say that. There are demonic, satanic entities that claim to be gods and have fooled people historically, but are not. They've posed as gods. Well, why does this matter when they say we can be like God? Well, I'll tell you why it matters. Because when Satan rebelled against God, what did he say to himself? I will be like the Most High. I will be like God. I'm going to be a God. And he went from being this incredibly beautiful, incredibly powerful being who was in the throne room in the presence of God to being Satan, the deceiver, the accuser. But it didn't stop there. He goes to Eve and he says, if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the one that God told you not to eat of, you will become like God, knowing good and evil. And so the temptation that he presented to Eve was the ability to become like God, to become a God. But it doesn't stop there. At the Tower of Babel, these people built this tower. They're building it up to heaven. And what do they say? We will be like God. And God comes down and makes it so where instead of speaking one language, they speak lots of different languages. I don't think it was because they were building a tower. I think it's because they said, when we get together and do things, we can be like God. God is awesome. God is incredible. He is so far above us. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and His ways are higher than our ways. And to compare ourselves to Him, to say that we can be gods, or that we can be like gods, is nothing short of blasphemy. And every time someone in the Bible said, I'm going to be like God, it had disastrous consequences. So the next time somebody tells you that you can be like God, you might want to think about that.